You said to me before we started, everything's at stake here. Explain to people why this election is different.
Well, look, one of the things that occurred when I won, you may remember, I said I was running for 3 reasons. It was after my son was killed, or died because of Iraq. And I didn't want to get involved. And then I was watching television. And I was a professor at Penn, watching television later. And you saw those folks come out of the fields in Charlottesville carrying torches, accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan, carrying Nazi swastikas. And a young woman a bystander was killed. And he was asked, well, tell me about what happened here, Mr. President. There were good people on both sides. That's when I decided I had to run. That's why I ran. And I said when I ran, I was going to try to do three things. And I meant this sincerely. Restore the soul of America, the decency and honor which we usually debate. Secondly, build the middle class, build out the middle class, and when that works, the bottom does well and the wealthy still unify. And third, try to unite the country. I was told I couldn't get any of that done. And then I had 4 major initiatives that they said could never pass. They all passed. And so we're making progress. We have the most advanced economy in the world today. We got more to do. But and all of it, he says, all of it should be, if he's elected, he's going to get rid of. And we haven't talked about foreign policy, and I know that's not on top of most people's minds, but he wants to get out of NATO. He wants to yield to Putin. He has a very different view of the world.
Wow. Weirdly enough, a moment of clarity and recognition that fucking nobody cares about American foreign policy, which is by design, mind you. It benefits the military-industrial complex that most Americans don't care about foreign policy. That's why we've designed our media apparatus so that they don't ever think about the consequences of Americans getting $5 jalapeno poppers, or rather, how Americans get $5 jalapeno poppers.
I do.
Do I think there's a population of Biden loyalists that won't vote if he's forced out? No, absolutely not. I don't think there's one person in this fucking country that is currently dick riding Biden that will go, oh, if it's not Biden, I'm not doing it.
Would you be willing to even look at the idea that if you get in, perhaps in a year and a half or 2, you would look to in your words, very capable vice president to carry it over the finish line?
Well, look, only if I was told that there was some medical condition that I had. And that's not the case. So,
womp womp.
But I understand what people say. Look, I'm only 3 years older than Trump, okay? And I think I'm in a little better physical shape than he is. The point is, though.
What are you on about? He'll beat COVID? You're delusional. He's not leaving us all. I think he'll beat COVID. I just don't think that he's not going to drop out. I might be wrong, but the pressure has increased quite a bit. I think he will as well, but I also think you've built a bubble with the idea of him dropping out. No, for sure. I think I've set my expectations on him dropping out, so I am definitely a little biased on that front. But I'm just looking at the tea leaves here. I'm looking at the reporting here, and literally since he got COVID last night, he had a conversation with Chuck Schumer, who said he reflected the views of his caucus and told him to drop out. He had a conversation with Hakeem Jeffries, so that's the Senate and that's the House. That's it.
That it's not unreasonable for people to say, wait a minute. They're 81 years old. And so I think it's a legitimate thing from the race. And as long as I can demonstrate that it's not affecting my ability to compete, my ability to get things done, my ability to literally lead the world. Mm-hmm. Lead the world.
So you are willing from year to year to look at your health, your capabilities, and move from that place?
Well, as a practical matter, yes, but there's no reason to believe that's not going to happen.
Let's turn to the economy. You've done some very good things. Unemployment rate for Black America, the lowest in history. Black Americans starting small businesses in record numbers. With your administration, you've provided $7.3 billion to HBCUs, capped insulin, as you've told us, for seniors and others. But because of the wealth disparity for African Americans, there's this sense, and being Joe from Scranton, you understand this more than most. Sometimes it's very difficult, even with all of those programs, to make it day to day to day. What do you tell people who are paying $6 for cereal? They can't take their kids to a movie or a a ball game, memories that last with you? What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them what's happening is inflation is coming down. It is coming down. You have 16 Nobel laureates in economics saying that it's coming down. I think you're going to see, I have not spoken to the Fed. My guess is they're going to reduce rates. But what we have to do is deal with the corporate greed. What's happened here is since the pandemic, corporate profits have doubled. For example, I want to make sure that you cannot, corporations that own apartment complexes cannot raise rent beyond 5% in any 1 year, period.
What?
I want to see to it that we're going to build 20 million new homes that are affordable. That's why I'm moving to make sure that we provide first-time home buyers, particularly in African-American communities and minority communities, down payments of $10,000 to get started. That's why I've forgiven student debt for people who have.
Low-key, he's kind of spitting. The problem is he's just not saying it well.
Met the requirement of paying off for 10 years and still have extreme debt, but they're involved in an enterprise that is whether a teacher, a firefighter, a police officer, et cetera, that debt is forgiven. And it's changing people's lives. It's changing people's lives.
Why do you think it hasn't resonated in a louder ring of the bell?
Well, I think it's resonated for those who have been affected. There's about 4 million people so far. And because the Republican Party and the MAGA Republicans have been opposed to it, and they've been beating up on it. I think that there's a lot of what we've done, Ed. For example, the infrastructure bill, fancy word for making sure we have better roads, highways, bridges, take all the lead pipes out of our homes, make sure there's access to affordable internet, just like in Roosevelt's time, back in earlier than that, making sure there were.
Everybody calm down. He's not wrong to say infrastructure is a fancy word for building better roads. That's not bad politics. You guys are so fucking geared towards hating on him, which is fine. I hate him, but you're getting lost in the sauce. What he's doing there is actually pretty fucking solid. He's just stumbling and bumbling around a little bit, but I would say this performance is better than most of his other fucking interviews regardless. I don't know, it seems patronizing. No, it's fine. You are supposed to be the greater communicator of your own message. And I think that personally, talking about infrastructure is one thing, but explaining what infrastructure is good. It's another thing. It's actually solid.
There's electricity and agriculture in the rural areas. That's all. It takes time for it to happen. And so it's just taking time for people to see it. And the other thing is, there's not been a very good job done about saying this new $1 billion bridge going over is brought to you by Joe Biden. This $1 billion tunnel is going to increase and reduce blah, blah, blah. So we're working on that, and I think, but I think it's just time.
Do you think Democrats?
Okay, I spoke too soon. What he should have said here, and this is something that Democrats do every now and then. I've heard Joe Biden do this before, where the money cast aside for the infrastructure bill is good because it fixed the roads, it fixed the bridges, it fixes the infrastructure, it gives better access to the internet for people all around the country. It also will replace lead pipes in people's homes. It's so good that every single Republican that voted against it went back home and in their town halls lied about voting for it. That's how good it is. Republicans know it's good policy. That is the best way to fucking, remind people that your political opposition are serial liars while simultaneously saying, credit where credit's due. Me.
Democrats have played the long game well. People will say Republicans play the long game better.
Well, let me put it this way. They may play the long game, but they don't do much. Look what they've done. Last administration had us in a recession when they left. Last administration, black unemployment was down. The last administration, because of the failure to deal with COVID in an honest way, 1 million people died. Last administration, we had the largest deficit of anyone in history, any one-term president. There's only 2 presidents in American history who've come to office and left with fewer jobs than they came to office. And the other was a guy we all know very well. I call, anyway, Trump is one of them.
You led me into the next question, and that is post George Floyd, African Americans were really hopeful in terms of progress with police reform, racial injustice, equality. There was a hope for government sanctions, reparations, and now Republicans in the Supreme Court, as you note, have banned or are trying to ban affirmative action, the teaching of Black history, dismantling of DE&I projects, and they're promising to roll back even more with something you and I talked about before we started here, and that's Project 2025. How do you stand in the breach?
I stand in the breach by making it clear we're not going to let that happen. For example, if you look at what happened with George Floyd, we didn't get the legislation, so I took executive action, made sure these guys got to wear cameras, and everybody has a copy, everything's on. It's changed. It's changed the way things have, not what we should have, as far as it should change, but it's changed things. We're also in a situation where, if you take a look at what we've done in terms of the number of police officers.
Like, what does he think is happening when he's asked a direct question and he just like fails to answer it? Does he think people will just like forget? He literally didn't answer the question. He just did not answer it at all. He's like, the body camera's top of the hour ad break.
There's 4. You know, most cops are killed, responding in domestic violence to that. So we don't need more cops. What we need is more social workers. We need more people who are in communities building coalitions. That's growing across the country. That's growing in neighborhoods.
Bro, this is like, I would say this is the diametrical opposite of like what he has advocated for the first 4 years. Okay? That's crazy. Bro switched up on BET. Like, Black people have no access to other forms of the media. Like, oh yeah, no, people will hear him and go, yeah, no, he's saying all the right things here. I just didn't personally see all the other stuff that he did and said. Yeah, this is code switching. He's code switching policy.
That's growing, and we have to keep doing it. We need another 100,000 community police officers working with communities and bringing people in who are social workers, people who know how to put neighbors together. Or we're doing things like what we're changing in the environmental stuff. So many Black neighborhoods are ripped apart by interstate highways running through the middle of their community, splitting them up. Well, we're providing the money to be able to pave over that now. Not pave over it, but build turn them into tunnels to bring the neighbors together again. But the other thing
oh my God, he's trying so hard. The only way you understand what he's trying to say here is if you just straight up know how like highways have contributed to redlining. This is the first time I'm hearing him bring this up, by the way. I'm a Biden head. You know this. I've been following him for quite some time. I've never heard him talk about highways cutting through Black communities. And he's trying to do this in the fourth quarter analysis. He's trying to do this in the fourth quarter, okay, when he's down. And it's wild. It's wild. He's right. What he's trying to say is right, but absolutely zero Americans will be able to grasp what the fuck he's trying to say because he is so bad at saying it. He's trying to say that the highway systems were specifically designed to separate Black neighborhoods from white ones. He's talking about white flight. He's saying that he's going to do away with that structure by creating, I guess this policy prescription is kind of stupid, put tunnels under the highways so that Black people will have easier access to white neighborhoods or other Black neighborhoods. And that policy is not great, but the problem that he's talking about is real. That is a real issue. And what is, of course, sad about it is that, one, he's never brought this up before. And two, he's doing a really bad job of describing the issue.
I've done it. Is making clear that when I got elected, I said I was going to have an administration that looked like America. I have more African Americans in high positions in not just the vice president, not just Supreme Court justice, but across the board in any administration in history. Because it's important that that kid in 10th grade.
You know that his team told him to rehearse that line so he doesn't say, I have more Blacks in my cabinet, like he did in a prior interview. That's why he said African Americans. Isn't this an interview where he did say that? No, he said I got more Blacks in my cabinet than anybody else. All of the other presidents combined. In a prior radio interview, they cut it out. Oh my God, did he say it again?
He looks up and says, I can do that. I can do that. It's important that people know that they're respected, know that they're taken care of, know that they're engaged. That's why I appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's, by the way, the brightest of the court, I think. I mean, in terms of pure gray matter. But so we're going to change this. But it's going to take time. We got to stay at it.
What do you tell African American who says, I hear that, but I've heard it for too long. It's going to take time. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting.
Look, take a look at what your bottom line is in your economy now. Take a look how the unemployment's the lowest it's been there. Take a look at how many the new jobs are created. Take a look at how many people are been able to get to college education and get the debt wiped out. Take a look at what's actually happening on the ground. Take a look at the fight that's going on. I mean, for example, I got a lot of heat because you have our friends in the Republican Party trying to erase Black history. Well, guess what? I've set up a new Juneteenth, a new federal holiday. They can't erase it anymore.
I don't know. Like I'm white. I don't know. Maybe the young Black chatters in this community can explain that. Like maybe they got some aunties that fucking this would appeal to, but it doesn't feel like it at all. This is the type of shit that the gas station employee says to me before saying the N-word. Yeah, it feels kind of hollow and racist to be like, yeah, I made Juneteenth. What do the blacks want now? Gave them another day off. Like it feels crazy.
Everybody now knows what happened then.
But they're trying to erase it in the schools.
So they are. And that's why we got to make sure that he doesn't get elected. Trump's Project 2025 says do it at the Department of Education. Let it up to local schools. What's he talking about? What's he talking about? He's talking about trying to erase it. Not just affirmative action, but all efforts to right the ships for people. Give people a chance. Look, my dad used to say that a job's about a lot more than your paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your integrity. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, everything's going to be okay, and mean there was a shot of it. We're moving there. And by the way, the way you get equity, you build equity by home ownership. That's how all middle-class white guys did it. That's how my dad was able to do it. You buy a home, you build an equity in the home, you're able to move from there. That's happening. That's happening. But we're going to focus on housing, significantly focus on affordable housing.
But you do appreciate that the standard for your dad and for any white man in this country is vastly different than any African American.
I do. But what you appreciate, my dad was a working class guy. We lived in a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids, and grandpa lived with us. We weren't poor, but there wasn't any money left at the end of the day. And so it's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting. Because I named the Secretary of Defense, a black man. I named Ketanji Brown. I mean, because of the people I've named. It's about making it clear that...
Bro, the one thing he's making clear is that it is for this specific talking point that he has put black people into positions of power. Like, dude, you can't talk about it like it's Pokemon, dude. Like... There is this air of like DEI, but on the woke side when you do that, okay? And it stems from the same place of otherizing black people. When you're just basically being like, when called in the question, like, what have you done for black people? He's like, oh, I got people. I got black people everywhere. Scare me sometimes. So it's a trap in general. Like when chatters tell me like, Hasan, why don't you have any black guests on? Or Hasan, why don't you have any black women guests on? Or whatever, right? Like, it's a trap. Like, you can't answer that question by responding with all the black people that you've had on. And many white chatters do that immediately. And it's like, you're so weird, dude. What the fuck? Like, you're automatically cooked in that situation because you're just saying some weird shit to be like, oh, let me just go back to the fucking Rolodex and be like, these are all the black people I know. Like, that's crazy. Just be normal. Be like, yeah, dude, you're right. Okay, whatever. Move on. Now, the funniest part about that, obviously, when you're the president, it's a little bit different. Like, you are specifically able to do things for black people, right? And in that situation, I mean, he can say the black unemployment number, stuff like that. But when he starts talking about like all the blacks I hired, like it just comes across like a racist dude attempting to name all of his black friends.
American history is black history. Black history is American history, and it's being built by it. That's why we're strong.
Anyway, I'm done with this BET interview.